All right, I think this will work. What's going on, everybody? So, iPhone video, it is what it is. I don't have a memory card for my camera, so I just wanted to go ahead and get on, man. So, today I want to talk about staying disciplined and staying focused on the hard things you have to do in life. I was really thinking about this yesterday as I've been going through a bit of an odd time when it comes to my discipline, showing up to the gym, going to jiu-jitsu, just eating better, etc., etc. Things I've always strived to do. But of course, the path will be challenged. The path will be challenged at times. I'm looking this way. I need to be looking at y'all. See, this is back to the old days, kind of. But it's sometimes the path fluctuates. Sometimes the feelings. Sometimes what you're getting out of the path. I'll just be real. You start to grind and life hits you a little different. Your stress stimulus has changed, and before you know it, you're being faced with burnout, man. You're being faced with burnout, and it's hard to readjust from that, and we're going to talk about it. So when it comes to discipline, and when it comes to times where you're going to start feeling burnt out, where it feels like you're not getting the same thing out of the disciplines you're doing. Well, most of us know when we go to the gym early in the morning, we know that we'd like to stay in bed. We know that we'd rather stay in bed and stay comfy under the covers. We don't want to get up. We don't want to go and subject our body to stress first thing in the morning, but we know once we show up to that gym, we start warming up and we get on that treadmill, we get under them bars, it starts to feel fucking good. And you walk out of there feeling proud of yourself, you walk out of there feeling good. There's a positive reinforcement, but there's also a time where doing that can also start to elicit a negative reinforcement, where the mental stress of showing up to it is so much that the positive you get from it can't seem to override it. And when this happens, and I find that this usually happens for me whenever I add something new to my life, or whenever life changes, my life schedule has to change. I add something else in, I change my routine up to where there's a higher frequency or a lower frequency, it's a different kind of training, whatever. Whenever we change something, we have to understand that when we change one thing, we have to be willing to adapt and adjust the whole system, because just because when you put one thing in there, it's not as simple as putting in a puzzle piece. You've now added a new component to an entire system of operations meant to calibrate you every day for your morning. So, where I'm going with this, when you're kind of dealt with that situation, you leave yourself prone to that experience where you might burn out or you're not able to keep up. And the reason I bring this up is because if you start to feel like that's what you're going through right now, where you're mentally churning more than you're receiving out of it. Let me tap this. That might be better. When you feel like you're receiving less than you got from it, right? Like I said, it's more mental energy to do the thing than it is to actually, when you come out of it. There's a couple things to that. You have to start evaluating the things in your life. You have to take a step back from everything. Because what happens is we build up momentum. We're in the routine and we're going. And before you know it, things change. Our emotions start changing toward it. Our ability to keep up with it starts changing. This is a very important part of being able to stay disciplined, is actually understanding that the reason you're doing it is because of what you're getting from it is better than the alternative. Right? And whenever you start to reach a point where the mental strain is so much to do it that you'd rather resort to the short-term seeking pleasures, where you'd rather resort to the video games, where you'd rather resort to the foods that aren't good for you, etc., whatever it may be, when you find yourself in that space, you should be asking yourself if you're really getting the full benefit out of your disciplines. Are you getting what you're bargaining for? What I find is when we start to move toward short-term seeking pleasure behaviors, it's because the vision in our life, the feelings that we get. I know people talk about, I'm not talking about like the brain fart. I'm not talking about like the little short-term buzzies you get. I'm talking about the long-term good feeling you get from it. So let me elaborate on this for a second. What I find is when we want to pursue the short-term seeking pleasure behaviors more than we want to the long-term sacrifices for a better tomorrow, when we find that we're leaning more toward that, and it actually seems more beneficial and fulfilling to pursue that, you should be asking yourself right away, what part of my life is not serving me? What has happened in my life? You have to take a step back and reevaluate everything that you've been doing. Like, you got to write down all the shit you should be doing. What have I been doing in the morning? What have I been doing here? What's changed? What change has been afflicted upon my life that I have not adjusted my system to? You see, it's not just a puzzle piece of things you add. Whenever you change things, the whole thing has to readapt. You got to readapt the plan. The program must change. I don't know what computer coding is like, but I'm not even going to use that example because I don't know it. But it's like even with cars, dude. Like, if you change one little thing, you can offset the entire engine. You can offset the entire vehicle because by that one little thing changing due to whatever external stress, whatever little thing we put on it, maybe something broke in there that was so minuscule, or maybe we did a repair and we did something, but we didn't realize that you have to take care of all these other things once you do this repair. Boom, you got a problem. We're the same exact way. So what happens is that short-term pleasure-seeking behavior starts to be a real fucking temptation, man. Porn starts to be a big temptation for you because you're like, fuck, man, it feels so much better right now. And what happens is when you engage in that pleasure-seeking, that dopamine rush, you get it. And all of a sudden, whatever pleasure you got from that takes the edge off of the difficulty and the mental strain you're having by continuing to do the thing. Because you want to stay disciplined. You want to stay on the path. But in order for you to stay on the path, unfortunately, now you're taking up these vices. You're taking up these negative things to distract yourself from the fact that your life is actually imbalanced. You're distracting yourself from the self-reflection that is necessary to actually say, what is going on here? What needs to change? What did change? And how can I adjust this? You need to step back, reassess, readjust, and re-engage. That's Jocko Willink. You need to do those three things, man. David Goggins talks about this, where you got to reset the circuit breaker. You take a step back, you open this fucking circuit thing, reassess. Put this down in your notes, man. What has changed? And then make the necessary changes. Get back on the path towards positive change. Look at the grand scheme. Now, this is going to lead me in my second part of this. So some of you might be hearing this and you're hearing burnout and you're experiencing this and you're kind of like, well, okay, you're saying get back on the path of positive change. What happens if I start doing those things and I still feel all that mental strain? You have to remember two things. One, what did it feel like before the burnout? What did it feel like when you were on your rhythm? What did it feel like when you went to the gym and you got that ball rolling? Because I'm going to tell you, getting the ball rolling is a lot harder than keeping the ball rolling. So what did it feel like when you had that ball rolling? Let me brighten this up. What did it feel like when you had that ball rolling and things changed? I mean, before things changed, what did it feel like when that ball was rolling? What feelings did you get when you walked out of the gym? How accomplished did you feel? How much better did you feel? What was your self-esteem like? What was your confidence like? How did all that, what was that like before? You have to remember what you got out of it before that mental negative strain came in. See, it's important you stop, this is why I'm saying you have to stop distracting yourself with these short-term seeking behaviors. Because sometimes what you actually have to do is sit down and adjust and look at, okay, where did this go south? Because clearly I need to fucking change some shit. This is what I do, A, B, C, and I I make the changes necessary. Because what happens is when you're engaging in that dopamine chase, you're shutting off the voice of your conscience. You're shutting off that inner voice that's going to tell you what's going on when you actually reflect. If you don't fucking reflect, it's over. You're going to continue to do the same thing, and you're going to wonder why it doesn't feel good anymore. You're going to wonder why you're feeling so demotivated, and it's because it's distracting you from that. So when you take a look at that, take a look at changes. Do whatever you need. Do whatever you need, right? If something has to go, maybe it goes. If something needs to scale back a little bit, cool. If it needs to ramp up a little more, whatever it needs to be. What's important is you don't punish yourself. You don't judge yourself for falling off the path, and you realize that this is normal for a lot of us. It's a part of being disciplined. You're gonna encounter this. You just have to have the ability to know how to reassess and readapt. Okay? It is